I warmly welcome all of you and expect excellent conversation as we all are getting ready for massive deployment of offshore. So offshore is the buzzword today of energy transition. We have been lucky to pick that subject over a year ago for this year's conference because it's a very important thing. All of the countries prepare themselves. Same goes for Poland. There's new legislation being ready for the offshore deployment. I'm sure Minister Guibourgé Czetwertyński is going to tell us something about that. There is a number of challenges, of course, with the offshore deployment, specifically the connection of these huge amounts that are foreseen, and then of course balancing them and getting ready the reserves for times that there will be no wind over the oceans. So these things are going to be discussed, I'm sure, and this is going to make our day extremely interesting, I'm sure.
Warm welcome to all the panelists and all the participants. We already have around 100 participants. I'll just introduce our conference by saying that a number of developments are now taking place, as Professor Jerzy has already indicated, both in the Baltic, the Adriatic, and the Black Seas. And I think that with these developments, which we are going to hear from our panelists today about, we're going to have a major change in the energy sector in our region with a massive deployment of offshore wind technology, and probably by the end of this decade, most of the countries which have a seashore next to Baltic, Black or Adriatic Sea will already catch up with the countries from the Western Europe with respect to the offshore potential. So we have the pleasure that Madam Commissioner Kadri Simson has decided to address also our conference today. And I will start maybe by putting her through. She has recorded a video for us.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Thank you so much for inviting me to speak at this year's Central Europe Day of Energy. You have chosen an excellent topic in offshore wind. We are now just 2 weeks on from the adoption of our EU strategy on offshore renewable energy. Right now, about 1/5 of the EU's energy comes from renewable sources. By 2050, we will see a huge change. Renewables must power most of our climate-neutral economy. Replacing coal, lignite, and natural gas will take massive amounts of green electricity. And many countries, in particular those of you in Central Europe, are already phasing these out or will in the future. Offshore energy, and wind in particular, can give us the push we need towards our targets, both in speed and scale. We have set our sights on 300 gigawatts of offshore wind and 40 gigawatts of ocean energy across the EU sea basins by 2050. Already by 2030, we want to increase offshore wind capacity at least 5 times to 60 gigawatts and produce at least 1 gigawatt of ocean energy. Scaling up in this way and bringing larger volumes of renewable energy will fundamentally change our electricity and energy sector. Not least because we need a fully integrated energy system as a basis. Planning needs to take priority. We are looking at many more sites for production, connections to the power grid, and reinforcement of the grid to direct the flow to the places where it is needed. And we need to make sure that we are not planning in isolation. Think basins, not borders. Cooperation must look beyond national interests and towards a regional and sea basin approach. This is something where Central Europe already excels. Beginning 15 years ago with energy security of supply and market integration, including the long-standing Baltic synchronization priority. In the 5 past years, it has expanded to the clean energy transition, and this trend will intensify with the Green Deal and Climate Target Plan for 2030. Having trusted fora to discuss and debate the issues will give rise to this regional approach. They already exist in the form of regional high-level groups, BEMIP for the Baltic Sea, CEEP for Central and Southeastern Europe, and cooperation schemes such as the 3 Seas Initiative. In September, I endorsed, together with the governments of the PEMIP members, a declaration of intent on cooperation for offshore renewables and creating the Baltic Sea Offshore Grid Initiative. Work has started on a dedicated work program for the initiative to follow in the spring of 2021, with the view to cost-efficiently use the offshore wind potential of the Baltic Sea, estimated at 93 gigawatts. CEEP is also embracing this dynamic. At the last ministerial meeting in September, offshore renewables were identified as promising renewable energy sources deserving increased attention. In the same spirit, 2021 will see a higher-level European offshore conference. Our hope is to bring together members of the existing regional cooperation formats to share best practice and common challenges. Energy is one aspect of offshore wind. Economy is another. The industry supporting offshore renewable energy is pan-European. Even landlocked countries without direct access to the sea are part of the growing value chain. Wind turbine components are manufactured in Czech Republic, Austria, and inland regions in Spain, France, Germany, and Poland. The sector includes hundreds of operators, many of which are SMEs. Today, the offshore wind industry employs 62,000 people and ocean energy about 2,500. There is potential for much more, which is of course especially relevant as we recover from the pandemic and its economic impact. The EU Renewable Energy Financing Mechanism will support offshore wind development. It will increase the supply and the demand, tap into the collective renewable energy potential, and lower the support cost, and make it easier for member states to work together. In addition to the mechanism, the €750 billion Next Generation EU package, with a recovery and resilience facility as its key instrument, will reinforce the EU's long-term budget. This will help front-load financial support for reforms and investments. To meet the 30% climate mainstreaming target of the new MFF and recovery package, 37% of the recovery and resilience facility will need to be spent on climate-related investments. In other words, €249 billion will be available for climate-related investment. Two of its flagships refer directly to energy. One of them is Power Up and includes front-loading future-proof clean technologies and the development and use of renewables, as well as their integration through modernized networks and connectivity. I hope to see member states use these instruments to the best of your ability to accelerate your investments in clean energy projects. Ladies and gentlemen, I end my remarks here. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoy today's discussions.
So I think that the message from Madam Commissioner was quite clear. The offshore wind energy will play a vital role in the development of Green Deal and EU energy policy in the coming years. And I think the million-dollar question is how to deploy this potential in our seas. So I think I would pass this question first to Minister Vaiciunas, who's with us already today.
Really would like to congratulate you because currently this is the best momentum to launch such a topic in our region and to talk about this very seriously. And the reason is twofold. One, of course, was mentioned by the Commissioner just several weeks ago. The European Union offshore strategy was launched. But the second reason is, of course, that in the region just 2 months ago, in the framework of the Baltic Energy Market Interconnection Plan, the memorandum was signed how to launch our efforts together and pursue the offshore energy for our future. So that's really the right momentum, and we see the development and the synergy of European, regional and national efforts to most the best use of the infrastructure and to make all the efforts that in 2050 all our electricity will be based on renewables. So here, definitely, yes, this is the same talking about our Lithuanian perspective, and we have really serious and important plans in the Baltic Sea, more than 3.5 gigawatts potential, and as the first step to develop at least 700 megawatts capacity of the offshore wind. And here, of course, we see the synergy with the Baltic states synchronization project with the continental European networks, as we are developing the very serious and very important infrastructure project Harmony Link, the interconnectivity between Lithuania and Poland, one of the key instruments, one of the key elements for our synchronization. So really huge thanks for our Polish partners for really good cooperation, and the European Commission for granting CEF support for this project. And I'm glad to say that this project will be developed in a timely manner. So concerning the measures of our government, I would like really clearly to say that here there are at least 5 important developments. So first of all, of course, this is the laws, and now we prepared all the necessary laws, and this is in the discussion in the parliament. The second point is the support mechanism, and we are planning to have the offshore auctions in 2023, and the support model will be contract for difference. The third thing is, of course, the connectivity to the grid and the connectivity to the onshore. So this 700 megawatts capacity will be connected to the grid, and this is the responsibility of our transmission system operator. This is in the law and in the project which is submitted to the parliament. And the fourth element, this is of course the strategic environmental assessment. And environmental assessment, this is the current weeks was very important. The process is ongoing, and we are planning to do all the necessary things that to be prepared for this auction in 2023. And last but not least, of course, this is construction of the infrastructure, and we are delighted to ensure that also the port is prepared to get these capacities and to make all the necessary construction work. So today, even today, in the government, just after 2 hours, we are planning to make also some decisions which will be important for the investors and for the port itself. So to sum up and to talk also about all these efforts, this is important not only to talk about the national scale projects, but also about the regional and the European scale projects. And here, of course, this cooperation between all these 3 levels on national, regional, and European will bring the best results for all of us. And here, of course, this is the best momentum for us to use the opportunities of the European Union. I mean, the financial opportunities, and this is which is coming from the recovery and resilience funding, another EU instruments, and this is the right momentum to minimize the cost for our consumers. And here, of course, this is the case that I would like warmly thank for our Polish colleagues for organizing this BEMIP event just 2 months ago. I attended this personally, and this is really a good launch of the framework for our future, because we have to work on the practical level, on the financing, as well as on the infrastructure planning. And here, of course, our TSOs should work and have to work together to ensure the efficient planning of infrastructure for the connectivity of the offshore. So, and I believe that this BEMIP platform will be a solid platform for our joint work, joint efforts to make the results as soon as possible. And last but not the least, I think this is also important to use all the possibilities. And from the Lithuanian perspective, also we made these efforts that in the last weeks we signed the MOUs with Luxembourg and Flanders from Belgium on the joint projects on the development of the offshore. This is the examples that now we are working on the practical level, but my message is clear that all the region, all the states has to make all the necessary efforts to ensure that these projects will be developed as much as possible efficiently, as much as possible with the support of the European Union, and as much as possible in synergy to help each other. So thank you very much for this possibility to talk, and once again, congratulations for really right momentum, and all the best in the following discussions.
Thank you, Minister Vaiciunas. I think this is quite an astounding list of things that the Lithuanian administration will now be doing in order to develop the offshore wind. I think that we have one evidence that the situation is already changing. We can see that on your logo, the logo of the ministry, you already have all the wind turbines that probably will be installed in Lithuania. So I think that's a great development that we're now observing. But aside of Lithuania, Poland is also developing its offshore potential. We have just received the news this week that the new bill that will concern the development of offshore wind capacities in the Baltic Sea has been passed through the government. So I would quickly pass the floor to Minister Guibourgé Czetwertyński to tell us more about these developments.
Thank you very much to CEEP for organizing this discussion today. As you said, we just approved in the government last Friday the bill to support the development of offshore wind in Poland, and it will now be going to Parliament for discussions in Parliament, and I hope it can be smoothly and quickly approved there as well, so that we can start our projects already next year. I mean, the objective included in our draft energy policy is to have 5.9 gigawatt of offshore wind installed capacity by 2030. But we don't want this to wait until 2030 for this to happen. We already want in the mid-20s to see the first offshore wind farms built in Poland. So we want, as I said, next year to be signing with the first investors that are ready to start their projects. Offshore wind, as was mentioned by Minister Vaiciunas as well, and I want to thank him and for his personal engagement as well, and for Lithuania joining this joint declaration that we organized with the 8 member states around the Baltic Sea to reinforce our regional cooperation in the frame of offshore wind, and also big thanks to Commissioner Kadri Simson for the support of the Commission in our efforts and for supporting our common work. And I am convinced that also this cooperation at government level will help facilitate further investments in all member states around the Baltic. Offshore wind will be a key component of our national energy policy. We are aiming at building over the next 2 decades a new zero-emission energy system of similar size to our energy system today, that is around 40 gigawatts, and that energy system will be relying on two main pillars. First of all, nuclear energy to provide the base load in the system, and we're looking there at 6 reactors, so that's 6 to 9 gigawatts, starting from 2033 until the 40s, and also and above all, huge investments in renewables, and they're a key place for offshore wind, with the aim to have about 8 to 11 gigawatts installed by 2040. Obviously, it is a huge challenge, not only in terms of the size of the investments that are necessary, and the logistics also, and all the investments that we have to do to adapt the grid to the functioning and to taking on more renewable power. But we see that as part of this most cost-efficient path for the transformation of the Polish energy system towards a zero-emission energy system. It is obviously as well a very important element for the future development of the country, and especially in these times of economic hardship with the coronavirus. We see huge potential of growth, of creating jobs in these new industries, connected to renewables. I was a couple of months ago at an interesting discussion with trade unions and local companies and NGOs in the north of Poland, in Gdańsk, where we were discussing the prospects of the EU climate policy, the objective of a climate neutral EU by 2050, and I saw there that there were huge hopes and a deep belief that these investments would be very beneficial for the region as well. It is obviously not coming without other challenges for Poland and for other regions in Poland, and there I believe that the joint effort that we are undertaking, and also with Professor Buzek in the Parliament, making sure that we have appropriate resources to support the development of the coal regions in Poland, and to ensure a just transition to the benefit of all citizens, really, in enabling the creation of new industries, new factories, creating jobs in those regions, jobs that can also be connected, we believe, to these new industries such as offshore wind that are developing. And we want to use the resources of the Just Transition Fund and other national resources to further invest in the development of new economic activities as well in those regions. That in a nutshell, I believe, on the main elements of our policies in terms of the transformation of our energy mix and the huge importance of offshore wind in this endeavor. And thank you once again for organizing the discussion, and looking very much forward for the next few days of discussions.
Thank you, Minister Czetwertyński. I think it's a huge task that Poland is now undertaking. As you mentioned, by 2050, we are expecting that Poland will completely redo its energy mix with 40 gigawatts from probably low carbon sources, or even most of them would be from the renewable sources. So I think the question is, again, how to do it. And I think we need to answer another question: what are the practicalities that need to happen in order to develop this huge potential, not only in the offshore sector, but also in the onshore sector? And I think that some of the regions in our country will be impacted more, some less, but with Professor Buzek, who's our next speaker, and is an expert, I think, on the situation that is happening, especially in the coal regions, but also in Poland, I think that he will be able to answer some of these questions too, and give us insight on what is needed from the practical point of view to develop the offshore wind potential, not only in Poland, but also in the region. Professor Buzek, the floor is yours.
I'm very glad to see you, some of you, on the screen, and it's great possibility to meet and to discuss some issues. Congratulations, first of all, to the Central Europe Energy Partners on the choice of today's topic. Excellent. And let me say thank you very, very much, Madam Kadri Simson, Commissioner for Energy. It's very important, your new offshore strategy. It's absolutely necessary for all of us. And I would like also to congratulate both representatives of European Central Europe governments for a quite clear declaration to go towards renewables. It's absolutely necessary, and we know that it's the cheapest energy resource, especially offshore energy. So it's quite clear that we should continue such a discussion. And let me say, it's 5th Central European Day of Energy, and I attended also the previous ones. And 2016, it was energy security, 17, energy innovation, 18, cross-border energy cooperation. Last year, the focus was on energy transition. Excellent. So it's a full continuation. Let me say, offshore wind energy touches upon all the topics which were mentioned previously. For example, it is very innovative technology. Second, it has great potential to improve our energy security by relying more on an indigenous renewable resource. And to make the most out of it, regional cooperation, cross-border infrastructure and trade are crucial. And offshore wind development could definitely become one of the key elements of just energy transformation, not only in Central Europe. You ask some crucial questions, and I would like to answer very shortly for both of them. First, it was about actions needed on the EU level, except for new offshore strategy, of course, concrete actions. So let me say in 2 points, energy transition has to go hand in hand with climate neutral reindustrialization. This is one of the main messages of a new industry strategy for Europe, report adopted by the European Parliament exactly 1 week ago. Everything starts usually from such a strategy. 10 years ago, I was an author of the Common Energy Market Strategy. And after a few years, everything has been happened and finished from this point of view successfully. In this context, we have to strengthen our technological and industrial leadership and autonomy in the offshore wind sector to base it on EU production across an entire supply chain. It is about supporting so-called local content and creating synergies between manufacturers, steel, copper industry, transport sector like maritime, construction, and IT companies, small and medium enterprises, research and innovation ecosystem. It could also be a great opportunity for some coal regions in transition, like green economic reconversion leading to jobs creation. So it's responsibility of the European Union to organize us all of us from such point of view. And second issue, serious investments in the development of electricity. Grids are needed. We should remember, while we change our ecosystem, electricity system, to disperse one if we count on prosumers. But in the case of offshore, well, we need quite a new approach to the whole electricity grid system. This is something we should also properly address in the upcoming revision of the Trans-European Networks for Energy. It is worth considering to enable identifying offshore wind grid connections as projects of common interest. Projects of common interest for the next years, even if direct impact on the level of cross-border flows is limited. After all, I think we can agree that offshore renewable energy is a common interest of our EU, European Green Deal, and all Europeans. And let us see how does it look like from the point of view, how it looks like from the point of view of member states. Investments in offshore wind are highly capital intensive. Therefore, I believe renewable energy development in most vulnerable member states should be additionally boosted through EU ETS-based instruments, including the Modernization Fund and Solidarity Pool, which should be adjusted proportionally to increase 2030 climate targets. And second issue, last but not least, developing human capital for the offshore wind sector is absolutely necessary. It's not easy. And this is, again, a huge common task for industry, governments, regional and local authorities, public institutions, universities, schools, and training institutions. I am very glad that I see at least 2-3 governments in Central Eastern Europe to be prepared for that and going in this direction. If we succeed in all of these points, prospects for offshore wind development in Central Europe will be more than promising. I'm sure about that, and that it will greatly contribute to so much needed energy wind of change in the whole EU, wind of change in the field of energy in the Central Eastern Europe and in the whole European Union as well.
Thank you, Professor Buzek. I think that's very inspiring, the wind of change that we are now going to hopefully see in our part of Europe. I think you touched upon very important topics, especially with respect to the future 10E regulation and the PCI's list and the offshore that should have a place on there. And we're going to talk about this during the second panel, but also about the importance of the human capital and the ability of the economies to provide experts who will be able to develop this sector, the offshore wind sector, on spot in countries from the Central Europe.